Hey, what's going on, world? You know who it is. It's Zeus Cruz of Olympian Multimedia, presenting you with another segment of A Word with the World. And we have a special guest in the building today. In studio is Rebecca Bonham, artist in her own right, poet, published author, also entrepreneur. So, say hello.
Hello.
We definitely appreciate you being here, Rebecca. How you doing?
I'm doing great today. A little
Awesome.
cold, but doing great.
Yeah, definitely cold. I mean, I like the cold myself, but it's a little bit too bitter for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's hibernating season.
Yeah, definitely. You know, just stay cuddle up. I ain't worried about going nowhere. I'm trying to look cute for anybody. But definitely, we appreciate you coming into the studio today to have this interview with us. We're kind of going to pick your brain today, discuss different facets of you. You know what I mean? In the literary world, as an entrepreneur, and just kind of get your insight on them processes involving that. So let's start. So let's begin on your journey to becoming a writer and a poet, and how you developed a passion for the medium.
Well, it simply came out of survival, really.
Okay.
I'm one out of 9 children. I have 9 siblings. So to escape that world, I read.
Okay.
I escaped myself into a book. Parents can't tell you to do things. Siblings can't bother you if you're reading a book.
Yeah.
So what I did is I spent a lot of my time in a book, in a corner, being quiet.
Okay.
Because if you don't get noticed, then you don't get asked to do stuff. I also started writing a diary, journaling, that kind of stuff, because I wanted to feel heard. Out of 9 voices and 2 parents, it's real hard to get heard. So, mostly what ended up, that type of writing only had one reader, and that was my sister, who would read my diary all the time.
Wow. No secrets.
No secrets. No secrets. Then I started writing, false things for my sister to read and get in trouble for, and things like that.
Clever. Okay.
So that's kind of where the writing came out.
Awesome.
I also, like I said previously, I had a lot of friends and boyfriends that were musicians, and I started attempting to write poetry as songs. Back in the day, there was a very strict format for songwriting, and I used to try to do that. I just never found the collaboration with a musician.
Okay.
That there's that special relationship that you have with your poetry and their music, and to be able to marry that,
develop that connection.
To marry that together is sometimes very difficult. So
Definitely.
after a long time, I just kind of stopped with the music side and just continued with the poetry side.
Awesome. And I could definitely relate to that as well, like being an author myself. Just the beautiful thing it is when you write, you never have to worry about the paper or the notepad or the notebook talking back to you.
Mm-hmm.
You literally can unleash every emotion and feeling and thought that you have and never have to worry about any kind of backlash. You know what I mean? Like, you could give it its full wrath and it's okay. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, you can find your own therapy, because you're able to get things off your chest, and you don't have to worry about any kind of repercussions from it. You know what I mean?
Also, too, you don't have to strictly form to a beat or a rhythm.
Yeah.
You can create your own rhythm and your own timing and your own beat, and not be restricted by that musically.
Yeah. Total freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So, can you break down what is your criteria for when you look for, when you're examining different excerpts of poetry?
I like poetry that creates emotion.
Okay.
Or it shares a life experience.
Uh-huh.
I like to feel that connection with the author. I like to feel that when I read a poem, I want to be able to relate to it in a certain way.
Definitely.
I want to learn from it. I want to feel something from it. Like I said previously, if you're writing a poem about food, I want to feel hungry. I want to experience that experience with you. Or I want to lay my own experiences on top of that and be able to connect with the author that way.
Definitely. Because one thing, too, about when you're writing, most of the people that is going to read your work, they don't know you personally. So in some way, shape, or form, you kind of got to layer your personality into your manuscript so people can kind of get an idea of who you are as a person, even though you may not personally be writing about yourself. So that's definitely a good point in mind.
I also feel that if I write a poem and I keep it to myself, it's my poem. If I write a poem and I read it to you, or I give it to you, then now it's your poem.
Okay.
Because you're going to read my poem with your life experience behind it. And you're going to add different meanings to my poems, like you, that I might not have realized.
Right.
That's where a lot of people have a hard time at poetry in school, is because so many other people's emotions have been laid upon these old poems that I feel sometimes we've lost what the original poem was meant to say.
Very
You
good
know,
point.
where English teachers might say, well, let's examine why the author used blue in this poem. Where, you know, you could say, oh, it's the symbolism of the sky and freedom, or cold water. You know, you could put all these different meanings onto blue. Personally, as the author, it might just be because blue fit and yellow didn't. You know,
it's really that simple.
So what I always say is, I write a poem for me, and then I give it to someone else, and then it becomes their poem.
Definitely. Your art starts with you first. Can't be so overly analytical as far as your approach when you're writing. Where it could go with any medium of art, whatever you choose. But you can't be so consumed with what other people might think or say about your writing or whatever you're trying to do. It is what it is, you know what I mean? Everybody has their own taste. But at the end of the day, it's your art. And as long as you're happy with it and content with it, that's the most important thing. So, what about books in general that you find fascinating and intriguing?
I personally read a lot of historical fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, horror. I tend to gravitate towards settings and environments and stories that in a different setting than I'm familiar with. So, and it's funny because I think of it more of, when I'm reading those types of books, what would my choices be in you know, alien, as in, to me, a different environment?
Right.
You know, historically, as a woman, what would my choices be in this time? You know, and you go into sci-fi or fantasy, this is a world environment that I'm not accustomed to. How would me socially, and how would I behave in this outside of my normal realm world? So that's kind of, you know, that's kind of a part of, you know, yes, I read the story and I enjoy the stories, but what would my choices be in those situations? What would my reactions be in those situations as well? I try to put myself into it a little bit.
That's, I guess I do that to a certain extent. I know with me, like, when I read, I actually try to, like, the characters in the book, I try to envision them as if they were, like, real-life actors or real-life people that I know personally. And it kind of helps me kind of visualize what's going on within the book a lot more better. You know what I mean?
I feel like for me, it's more like I'm in that horror movie and I'm the one that, no, I'm not going upstairs. I'm going out the door and in the car.
You see that a lot in movies. You be looking like, come on, man, you got to know not to go that way. Yet you're going that way now. And then somehow you trip over something that wasn't there a second ago and magically is there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the kind of, you know, little mindset that I use, is like, all right, I wouldn't go upstairs. I would go outside and get in the car. You know.
Yeah, that's a nice way of looking at it. So your love of literary arts has transcended to you becoming the co-owner of Blue Jade Press. So can you explain to the viewers about Blue Jade Press and how it was created.
Well, I'm going to take you way back because
Okay.
most things started, as a child. My grandparents had a bookstore in Bridgeton, downtown Bridgeton. It was more than books. They had it in the late 80s, and that was my first job.
Oh, okay.
So I won't tell you exactly how old I am, but at 10 years old, I used to do the children's section and the young adult section,
Okay, cool.
and I used to dress the windows and things like that.
Awesome.
It was called More Than Books because they did music. They did promotions through there, and they
awesome.
also did they sold books. So I got a big education in that growing up. I remember when Bruce Springsteen's poster came out and it was just his backside with a bandana out, and I put that up in the window, and my grandfather was like, "You can't put somebody's backside in my window," until they all came in to buy his CDs and his tapes and stuff. That's how old it was. You had to go to the store to get music. But that just gave me my love of books and selling books and things like that. And I, stopped doing that, and I got a real career, and I was a hearing aid dispenser, which allowed me to kind of marry a couple of my interests, with sound engineering and also stories. Because if you work with a lot of geriatrics, you're going to hear a lot of stories all day, every day. But it was a way to pay the bills and to raise my family. But when that situation came to a close, I was offered, a position working for an independent publisher. We did that. I did that for a couple of years. She decided to go off into a different direction. She wanted to do more of charitable write for therapy work, where you would, do writing programs and things like that for, writing for emotional and mental therapy and things like that.
Okay.
Whereas I wanted to be more supportive of young and aspiring authors and giving them a platform to be heard.
Beautiful.
So in 2018, we decided to form Blue Jade Press. Blue Jade is a symbol of peace and acceptance, and also inspiring you to achieve your dreams. So any aspiring poet or any poet aspires to be published, and we wanted to create a forum where you didn't need the Ivy League school or the master's in creative writing. You didn't have to go through book agents and publishers and rejection letters and that kind of stuff. We wanted to create a place where people felt safe to give us their work and work with them to bring them up to a level where they could perform them in public and promote them in public in that way.
Beautiful. That's awe-inspiring on your part to do that. It's not just about making a business, but try to incorporate the community.
Yes.
And make like this platform for different artists and whatnot. Very beautiful. So, what does it entail to operating a business, especially with the background of literature?
Well, with coming from, a corporate job to owning your own business, you realize that the one thing that you're definitely going to need is self-structure. Because, and I'm sure you're a small business owner yourself, that you could find yourself working 20 hours a day if you allow yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas, for 15 years of my life, I had a set schedule. I knew what I was doing every day. Every 15 minutes, I would have it all laid out for me. And there was policies and procedures in place and things like that. When I started my own business, I had to create all of that from scratch, which was wonderful in one way because I got to do everything exactly how I wanted to do it. And it was awful in another way because I had to figure out exactly how I wanted to do everything.
Yeah, it's like the yin and the yang effect.
So you get an education really quick about, different, just different things that you have to do on a daily basis, like contracts and accounting and
Yeah.
you know policy,
Budgeting.
budgeting and corporate policies and you know what if scenarios and
Yeah.
those types of things. So that way, and it's even harder if you're a single business owner. Luckily, I have a partner. Jacqueline Griner is the co-owner of Blue Jade Press. So I'm the one that has all the big, huge ideas, and she's the one that brings me down to earth and says, "Can you really manage all of that right now, or is this something that we need to implement a system for?"
Definitely need like a voice of reason.
So so if you're interested in making your own business, write down everything that you think you might need. And then get another piece of paper, because then you're going to write even more down as you find out and as you go through.
Most definitely.
But I do find that being an active part in your community, whether it be the arts district, and I'm very close with the arts district in Millville, with other artists such as yourself, other authors, you'll find that there's a lot of support and a lot of back and forth where we can talk through our issues and our problems and kind of mentor each other in that type of way of what worked for me, what might work for you, and vice versa. If there's a lot of people out there that are willing to step up and support you in that type of way too. You just have to open your mouth and look for it, and ask for it.
Definitely put yourself in a situation where you can be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And not be on the opposite end of the spectrum, be sheltered and reserved. If you want your artistry to be known, you definitely got to put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or allow opportunities to present themselves. Open your heart and your mind to certain things. You might have to expand your horizons, maybe have to go out your comfort zone a little bit, but it'll pay off in the end.
Yep.
So, would you say there's a correlation between developing a book and operating a business, and how so?
Well, like I said, there's many facets of the business, but there's many facets of the book itself. When the toughest thing the toughest thing for authors to answer me when they submit their books or their manuscripts, I ask them physically, what do you envision your book to be? And they're like, I have no idea. What do you mean? It's like, okay, so, what does the cover look like? What does the font look like? Let's start building this. Now it's all digital. It's all in your head. Poetry is all in your head. Now it's on paper. Or now it's in the computer. Let's take that out of the unreal and put it into a real physical thing. So you need a lot of collaboration. You need cover. So we get an artist to do the cover. We want to know, well, do we want it an 8x5 or do we want it a 6x9? Or how big do you want your book? What does the inside look like? Those types of things. What does the back cover? So when you're building this, you're really paying minute attention to some of the details that are most commonly overlooked. Because I'm an author and I'm thinking about my books and I'm thinking about the order of the words that are going into it. And there's so much more that's included in that book. Do we want spine copy on the side? There's so many different little intricacies, exactly. So in a business, it's the same. I started my business, and my business was going to do A, B, and C. It was going to get poets a place where they could have their manuscripts published. And then I found out, oh wait, I need to give them a place to promote their books and get their voices heard. And now I need to also be able to get that known on social media and through the internet and marketing in that way, and how to sell books. What books sell, which ones don't. Wow. So when you start kind of layering all these things, you realize that, like the book, it's more than just you putting your words together. It's much bigger than that.
Definitely. But the biggest point is about like outlining. You know, you have to create some type of plan for yourself. It's kind of foolish thinking to just kind of dive into something, especially as integral as a business when there's so many layers to it. You know, you got to be concerned about all kinds of different things involving with that. But it's also with like books as well, just creating that, maybe it's just a piece of art, music. Man, it's just not you just going over there in front of an instrument or whatever and just composing something. Man, there's layers to it. And a lot of people think, you know, you just press a couple buttons. Oh, I just scribble a couple lines. I just write a few bars or lines or whatever, or sentences or whatever, and, you know, you got magic on your hands. And it's like, if that's what you consider magic or consider good, okay, that's your business. But obviously, if you really want to dive into your art and make it something, you know, you have to consider everything that's involved with it. So, you mentioned earlier that you put together showcases through your publishing firm for local authors and poets. So, what does it mean to you that you're able to present this platform for authors and poets alike to demonstrate their craft?
I really started doing this as a way to give back to the community that supported me so much. I mentioned before we started that I have extreme social anxiety sometimes, and I also have stage fright. And for so long, and some, you know, personal issues, you know, domestic violence and other reasons, I've always been very closed in my poetry. It was a closed art for me, and it was something that I did for myself because it helped me through these situations. So I was encouraged, and I would write with friends, and we would just play back and forth, and we would write poems and hand them back, and a lot of them were jokes and fun, and I would say, you know, if you're going to complain to me, do it in a haiku, because I don't want it to be too long, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So these friends supported me, and they got me interested into joining these open mics and these groups, these writing groups. So I started in, it was Poetry on High, and it was in Millville, New Jersey, and I started attending this. So after a while, as some hosts, you might know or might not, after you do it for so long, it becomes, you know, a chore a bit. And after 8 years, the host retired. Well, they, you know, for a couple of years, there was no poetry on High Street. So the community kept coming up to me and saying, different people would say, you should do it. You should do another poetry event. You should do a poetry event. So after hearing that for a couple of months, I said, well, okay. And so our first poetry event, they named themselves Resurgence, a resurgence of poetry in Millville. And we started that in 2017, and we've been doing monthly poetry, open mic, and workshop for the public. So what we do is we do a workshop where we do prompt writing and different form writing, and we go over our poems that we've worked on since. We do a feature reader, which is usually a local author will come in and read for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then we do an open mic, and we allow anybody and everybody to get up on the mic and just perform their art. And as I started doing this, I started meeting other people that were doing this as well. And then we started building this community of authors and hosts and venues that support each other, and they support the art and poetry and writing. And we've created this diverse group of authors and writers, not only in race, but in creed and in age, that will go and enjoy each other and enjoy each other's writing and inspire other people. And once I became a part of that community and I started to build that community, it just gets better and better. Every person that I meet that jumps along this line, we just, you know, we inspire each other and we push each other forward. So that's the benefit that I get from doing that, is just seeing something that I've took so much from, be able to gain so much from the little bits that I do. You know, 3 hours once a month isn't much out of my time, but to create and to get back what I got from that is so much more than that.
Awesome. And it's just refreshing to be around people and hear stories like this, where you're creating this platform and you're allowing other people to kind of come into your cipher. You know what I mean? And it's always great to be around like-minded people who share your interests. You know what I mean? So many ideas are bouncing off of each other, and it's a learning process as well. You know, you take little tidbits of what this person says, your mind should always be open to learning. You never can get to a point where you can't learn anything, especially from other people. You know what I mean? And that'll just strengthen your resolve as an individual, but also as an artist, as a writer. You know what I mean? You take little tidbits from here and here and kind of incorporate into your style or whatnot. So, last but not least, what is new on the horizon?
Well, since January is this cold month and we'd rather snuggle up inside, this is our month where we pretty much do a lot of our editing. We take our new submissions, we plan out our calendar for the year. Like I said, we started in 2018 and we started with 2 books published in 2019. Last year we've been up to 12 books with 10 different authors.
Awesome.
So we're always increasing. We're always taking submissions and looking for our next author and our next book to join us in this journey. With COVID and the pandemic and lockdowns, it's been pretty difficult to kind of plan events. But we would like to. We did the Collingswood Book Festival this year. We hope to do an Atlantic City Book Festival, and we also like to just find different venues and places to make these events, like poetry and musicians and art. We all want to collaborate that and just have a good public experience for the public, because I find that our best audiences are found audiences, people that walk by poetry that might not have not understood that they liked poetry until they were presented in a spot with it, and then you find them coming back again just because they happen to be there. So our goals for this year is to keep on keeping on and keep on sharing that word and keep on meeting people like you that have that same focus and that same drive and that same ambition and goal that we have, and hopefully to collab and do some stuff.
Yeah, I was just about to say, could be a possibility, a collaboration between Zeus and Rebecca. Might write some, put something together. Who knows what the future holds? You know what I mean? But anything is possible. But Rebecca, we definitely we're honored and privileged to have to sit down with us today and do this interview. Very enlightening. Dropped a lot of quote unquote science. A lot of stuff that the viewers can take in and kind of hopefully stir something in them, put the fire in them, be motivated to do some things.